Hello, I'm P. Roberto Garcia, Distinguished Clinical Professor of International Business and Faculty Director of the Center for International Business Education and Research, CIBER. Welcome to this special edition of our CIBER Pedagogy webinar series on the Kelley Foundation's core. As we know, faculty across the world rapidly transitioned to online teaching this spring, and the Kelley School of Business was no different. To further complicate the situation, about 20 of my colleagues found themselves having to also transition what is typically a 10-day international travel experience course for the students to an online format. So we thought it would be helpful to hear from a few of them and how they approached this difficult task. So our guest today is my good colleague, Erica Kovacs, Clinical Assistant Professor of Management and Entrepreneurship. Erica, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Roberto. Great to see you.
All right. So tell us about your 272 course. Give us a brief summary of the course, its objectives and outcomes, and how many times you've taught it and have gone to Brazil.
The goal is to have a better understanding on how to do business in Brazil, so to do a country analysis. With that, we have three main outcomes. So first is to understand a little bit of the history of Brazil. So that's important when you are doing business in a country, to understand what is the history of that country. The colonization of Brazil, how, when the Portuguese colonized, how that impacts the way Brazilians, the cultural environment, how the cultural environment is today, all the legal features, the political features, so all these influences. The second one is to do a past analysis. So we discuss a lot of the political environment, how different it is here compared to Brazil. Then we talk about the economic environment as well, the exchange rate, all the factors that influence the exchange rate. And it's interesting because they experience that in Brazil when, well, exchanging their money as well. Then we talk a lot about the cultural environment. So how Brazilians are more relationship oriented, much more indirect. And we talk a little bit about technology as well. And the third outcome is to make a country analysis per se. So they actually pick a US company, and with all that we discussed in the course, they make a decision whether to take the company to Brazil or not, and how to take the company to Brazil, whether to exports or joint venture, and why into each region, because the 5 regions in Brazil are very different. So at the end of the 8 weeks, they have all this knowledge about the differences, not only culturally, but all the things, all the past analysis in the 5 regions are very different. So it's really interesting. And then at the end, they do this presentation. And after the 8 weeks, we travel to Brazil, and they are able to see those differences and similarities in Brazil. That unfortunately, this year, we couldn't go because of COVID.
Mm-hmm. So what was your approach for creating the online experience? What was your primary objective? What did you want the students to take from it?
So I wanted to, well, we had a couple classes at Kelley here, and then, well, COVID, we had COVID all over the place. All study abroads were canceled. And then I wanted to provide them the best experience without going to Brazil. What I did was, instead of going to Brazil, I had Brazilian companies coming to our Zoom meetings. So that way they would take the best out of it. So, and also to help to understand, so we had actually 5 companies coming to our virtual Zoom classes. So we end up having the CEO for Philips Latin America to talk about the experiences, not only in Brazil, but in Latin America. Then we have Isabel, who is also a marketing executive, talking about the differences in marketing in Brazil versus the US. She also worked in the US. Then I had Lucia Jennings, who is the CEO for the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce in Southeast. Then we have Alejandra Moreno from Rede Globo. Rede Globo is a huge, so it was interesting. And then we had another one, Gustavo Fuga, that it's an English course. It's called For You Too. So they bring a lot of foreigners to Brazil to have the experience on teaching Brazilians of low income. So I think we actually gained a lot with the study abroad. Because instead of just being in 2 cities, we were able to have people from all over Brazil in different places to share their experiences. So that's what I tried to do to, well, get the best out of it. And also we did a case competition. So we had, well, the students in Brazil didn't have classes as well. Everything stopped in Brazil. So we got 16 students from 3 different universities, and we had a case from InBev, the brewery company. And these students worked together for 6 weeks on this case. So that way, they were able to gain other skills, such as working in different culturally virtual teams. 3 Brazilians, 2 Kelley students, to better understand the Brazilian environment, to find solutions for the case. So I think it was very interesting. It was a different outcome. Yeah, it was a good experience for both,
Now,
for Kelley students and Brazilian students, yes.
yeah. Now, I imagine that you and the students were incredibly disappointed to learn that you couldn't do the travel portion of the course. But were there any new opportunities that emerged as a result of the program being moved online?
Yes, I think so, Roberto. I think one was that we were able to visit virtually companies that physically we wouldn't be able to see in Brazil. So they were different. So we learned different things. And the second one, I think they gained a different skill, was this ability of working virtually in teams, especially with a culture that is so much more indirect, or so much more relationship oriented, while here we are more task oriented. So I think this challenge of putting different cultures together and getting a final project, having a final presentation together was a very important learning. So I think it was a very good opportunity for our students.
So it's so difficult to recreate the international trip experience online. How did your students react? Did they express anything positive about the experience?
Yes, Roberto, they did. I got quite a few emails from students. We had a debriefing session at the end about what they learned. Of course, at the beginning, they were very bummed. They were very disappointed because we were not able to travel. I was too, because we was like, oh, okay, we all wanted to, I wanted to show my culture. I wanted to take them there. But I think at the end, we were so happy with what we were able to do. So I did a course evaluation with them about what they've learned, and they were really appreciative of what we were able to accomplish with the case competition and with the visits. And I'm pretty sure they will go to Brazil someday after seeing what we learned and what we accomplished. So I think they actually got more than what they thought they would. So I think those virtual study abroads might be a trend in the future. I don't know. So that's something new, something interesting to take in consideration, in the future.
That's interesting. You probably only increase their appetite to want to go to Brazil when it's possible to go. It's an incredible country, and I've enjoyed my visits there very, very much. So I hope they get a chance to go.
Oh yeah, me too. Yes, yeah, I hope so too. I
Okay.
heard that from a few of them. They said, okay, I'll
Yeah.
go to Brazil, I'll take my family to Brazil. Or even one of the companies like this For You Too, they actually recruit English speakers after they graduate. So some of them said, oh, I'm interested in doing that. So yeah, I'm pretty sure some of them will be interested, yes.
Hmm. What were some of the important lessons you gained from this experience?
I think we have to have, well, flexibility. Things change, Roberto. So in general, then having an open mind, that study abroad is not only going abroad and taking the students. So I think with COVID, that's something that we have to take in consideration. And maybe this is not the only virus, maybe I don't know what will happen in the future, but open mind, flexibility. There are other ways of getting, making the students aware of cultural differences, similarities, having this international vibe, learning about international, and the technology supports that. So I think that that's something to take in consideration.
Okay. Any final comments or advice you wish to leave for our audience before we end this discussion?
I think it's, we have to take, the final comment is that now we should take advantage of all those virtual opportunities. So many things that can be learned about international business or culture virtually. All museums, so many places are virtually open that they were not before. So that's my final comment, to take advantage of that. Do not think that the only way of learning about international is traveling internationally, living abroad, studying abroad. If you are curious, if you are, well, if you are curious, if you can do some search about it, research about it, you can learn a lot virtually. So that's my final thought, like we did right now. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, this has been very useful, and congratulations for delivering such a good experience and good course under very difficult circumstances.
Thank you, Roberto. Yes.
All right. And thanks everyone for watching this discussion. If you have any questions about this video or suggestions for future pedagogy topics, please contact cyber@indiana.edu.